Hi, my name is Guy Lawrence and thanks for tuning into my podcast today. If you're enjoying these conversations and you want to check out more of this transformational work, be sure to come back to guylawrence.com.au and join me as we go further down the rabbit hole. Enjoy the show. Bill, welcome to the podcast.
Well, good morning to you, because you're such a fast guy. You're a whole day ahead of me. But it's afternoon here in California, so top of the morning to you.
Thank you, and I appreciate you coming on the show, mate. And before we kick off into any conversation, I like to ask people, and let's say you wandered into a coffee shop right now and you ended up speaking to a complete stranger and they asked you, what do you do for a living these days or keep yourself busy? What would you say to them?
Well, actually, I'm one of those guys, when I walk into a coffee shop, I never sit alone. Somebody will eventually migrate to where I'm at. So there's always a conversation. I don't like to, sit there and meditate by myself. I'm very, if people are open, I'm always wanting to talk to them. But what I do for a living, I guess I'm what you'd call a conscious liver. I mean, not the meat, a liver like you're living. I'm out there to serve and to love. To me, the whole thing about life is about serving and loving. And I retired. I was a safety manager in federal government for the Postal Service. And I was in charge of safety for 10,000 employees and everything. And a lot of responsibility, but I've been retired 20 years. 20 years. Shows you how old I am. 20 years I've been retired.
Wow.
And I work harder now than I did when I was working. Up until this virus, which just kicked California, everything's shut down here. I don't do any public talks. I don't travel anymore. I'm pretty much at home. But up until then, I was in Wales. I was in England. I was in Germany. I was in India. I was in Vietnam. I was in China. I was in Bolivia. I was in Peru.
Wow.
I was traveling all over the world and giving talks, giving lectures, doing radio, giving workshops. So what I really do is reach out every day, like today. Here's today, typical day. I gave help and advice to a young man in the Philippines. And the guy was having some emotional things going on, so I worked with him. I worked with a young lady in England. I worked with a young man in Germany. I don't work with too many old people. It's always young people contact me. I don't know what it is. And I was working on the East Coast with somebody from Florida, and then I was having a consultation with a guy in Los Angeles. All different issues. That was my morning. And so I hadn't had a lot of time down doing anything. I don't sit around and watch TV all day long. It's all about serving. And so I try to get other people out there when I meet them. I kind of do a quick read on them. I find out where they're at. And I try to get the conversation off me and what I do. And I try to get the focus on them, because most people, they're looking for somebody to listen to them. So I'm thinking, to answer your question, what do I do for a living? I probably listen more than I used to, even though I do a lot of radio and television talks. If you take that away, and just me and you sat down someplace and we weren't recording this, it would probably be 90% you talking and me listening. And not me doing that just as a courtesy, but me doing that because I really want to know who you are and what you're going through. And if I can offer any energy to that, then I do. But I do have a rule. I refuse to tell people what to do. So what should I do? Should I get this job? Should I move here? Should I move from Wales to Australia, right? I would have never told you to do it one way or the other. I'd say, well, go with your heart, right? What do you think? So I'm a director of hearts. I'm a tool man of the soul. I try to provide for people what they need without telling them what to do or what they need. So yeah, that's, in a nutshell, that's what I do. That's my toolbox.
Yeah, beautiful. And even researching your work, Bill, before, and you've lived such an incredibly full life, and you like you say, clearly a man of service and contributing and helping other people. And with all those people that you would have met, seen, and do, and experiences you've had, and which we can talk about later. But what do you think is the essence of it all, the essence of life, then, with the essence of what it is we're here to do and grow with? Because I find there's so many people lost, and that was me for a long time as well. And if you had to capsulate that and take the essence out, what is it?
Well, let me start off by saying this. I talked to a young man in high school. He has no idea what he wants to do, what he wants to go to college, go in the military, get a job. I got a granddaughter. One of my granddaughters is in college, University of Reno in Nevada, or University of Nevada in Reno. And she changed her major, I think, 3 or 4 times, and she's graduating this year. And I'm wondering if she knows where she's going, right? I've met 96-year-old men and women that are still telling me they're still trying to figure it out. So you could spend a whole life just frustrated by asking the question, or as I tell people, don't think about it, just do. Just do. Go with the moment where you're at. When I'm asked to speak at like a graduation, for like a military group or some other group, I don't get invited to the big college campuses, but for the little graduations I go to and do, I'm different than your normal graduation speaker, because you'll listen to the rest of these graduation talkers and they'll say stuff like, go out into the world, find a job that you love to do and get that job, right? Move to where you love to live, and they go through all this stuff. And I'm going, boy, they can make a lot of people making some crazy decisions, because what do people really want to do? I talk to young people, what do you want to do? Oh, I have a blog. I want to travel. Okay, good luck with that, buddy. You'll make a good living, right? But so I tell people this: learn to love the job you got. All labor is noble if it's in service, right, to others. So if you can't love the job you got, you're not going to get the job you love. You're not going to be happy then either. Learn to love what you have. Learn to love who you're with. Who'd you marry? Who you're dating? What's your people, your friends? Love them. And love where you're at. Doesn't mean you don't move, you don't change, you don't expand, you don't do other things. But if you can't love where you're at and loving what you're doing now and loving who you're with, then you won't, when you move on to something else. You think you moved on to something you like, but you got to love whatever you're doing. It doesn't matter what it is. And all jobs, if they're in service to society, to all, to the one, to God, whatever, if you do all your work in service and love, then everything you do is blessed. So I don't know what the question was, but that was my answer.
No, it's beautiful, because I think, and I always speak from my own experience, but it was the greatest illusion, thinking I'm going to get this job, I'm going to make this money, I'm going to do this, then I'm going to feel successful and happy, and then I'm going to be fulfilled. But what you're saying is that if we come back to the present moment and come back to it's almost like being grateful for everything that we have right now.
Gratitude. That's something that this new generation, I'm noticing a great lack of. I'm hoping that they prove me wrong in decades to come. But right now, we have a whole group of young people growing up, at least in the West. I don't know about Australia, but in the West, Canada, United States in particular, gratitude is not a virtue. It's instant gratification on everything. I want, and people go get it. They don't appreciate what they have. They don't appreciate what they've been given. My God, to live in a free country like Australia, like the UK, like Canada, like United States, to live in a free country. I've traveled around the world. I've seen other people. I've seen what they've gone through, and I'm going, be grateful for what you have, because even the poorest person in America is better off than people in some of these African countries and South American countries. So we have a lot. So be grateful. Being grateful is everything. Grateful for what you get attracts, like a magnet, more of what you need. And I tell people, don't go out looking for what you think you want. What you want is not necessarily what you need. Two different things. We got people out there, I want this huge house, 5 bedrooms, and I want 4 baths, and I want a Porsche sitting in the driveway and a Jaguar. A house is a house. The bigger house ain't going to make you that many more times happier than a small house. Again, be satisfied and grateful for what you have. Try to, if you can achieve more and get more. And I say that because when you have more, then you're able to give more and help other people and not be dependent on the state yourself. When you become independent, if you can become independently wealthy, and better yet, become independently wealthy and become an employer of others so people can labor for an income, that's a blessing for all. We need more people out there that are creating work and jobs for people, plowing their profits back in so we can hire more people. We have just the opposite going on out there. We have people that, I don't care what company, if it's Amazon or whatever, even though they're hiring lots of people, they're always looking for ways to cut the assembly line down, replace it with a robot, right? Replace it with a computer, replace the human element with something that's machine. So in the next 20 years, you're going to see jobs such as truck drivers, which is a big employer in Australia and the United States. And it's, non-skilled to a certain level, but, driving a truck. But they're going to replace those with these big trucks, and they already have them, that can drive themselves across the country. And they'll park and everything else, all computer driven. So there's a big segment of employment in the United States that's going to take a hit. So I always applaud people that are out there creating jobs and finding ways to serve others. So to me, the perfect future would be if you eliminate jobs, you've created service environment jobs for people that clean up the environment, people take care of children, people that educate people that are there to nurse in nursing homes and hospitals. Those kind of service jobs are a blessing for all. So I'm hoping they don't replace those with robots. So
yeah. What I find fascinating is that when we speak of gratitude and speak of service and actually being in a place where we can almost bring things into a labor of love, for me, and I think this is an issue generally in the Western society, and that I was completely disconnected from my heart and any kind of divine wisdom that was beyond me. And I was had zero connection to any of it. And while living from that place, I was suspicious there might be something more, but while living from that place, I was in my head constantly. And I see it with so many people. We're all stuck in our heads. We don't take the journey and reconnect to the heart and start to come from that place and start to live from that place and trust that place. Just like we were talking off air, how you say you surrender. You took up to these big speaking events and you just get on stage and you surrender to that moment and you trust and you have that knowing that's innate in us. It's embodied in us. But it's been such a huge journey for me so far, and I only wish others could experience that too. How do we help people get there, or from your own experience?
Let's talk about that, because connecting those dots are more important than any stories and other things I can relate about what I'm doing, what I've done. In the end, it's about your listeners and the viewers on this. Where are they going? What do they need? How can we help them? And the first thing is something I told you before we went on the air. I said, you're going to find them one of the most thoughtless persons you know. And I'm talking about trying not to get the mind into the thinking, I don't overthink anything. Every decision is intuition. How do you feel? I'm more about feeling and sensing than I am about analyzing and looking at the data. And when you're dealing with people, I don't look at the data. I'm looking at their heart, because if you want to get ahead in this world, you got to stop all the thoughts from coming from here. And some of the thinking has to come from your heart. You have to be heart-led, and this will open doors for you. Let's talk about something that will help. Manifesting. People talk about manifesting all the time. And I don't know, in your country, I go to people's houses in California, and especially Los Angeles, and they got pictures on the refrigerator on the bulletin board things they want to manifest in their life, a new car, big house, a new TV series, because actor friends, they got all these things up there and they're materializing these things. They look at them every day, they think about it, they focus on it. That's not what I teach people. I'm going, first off, the universe, God, the creator of all, knows your needs. You don't got to tell God, hey, God, I need a Mercedes-Benz. Well, God's going to deliver you a ride share, go pick you up, take you to work. You got no problem. Or an old Volkswagen Bug. Doesn't make any difference. It's transportation, right? So when you start telling God what you need, you're selling God short, because actually what God may give you may be something even greater than you would appreciate, because not everything that you get is good for you. And we have people in the United States, we have what we call a lotto. You can win millions and millions of dollars. You buy a ticket, and the numbers come up. Many of them, I know 7 winners of millions of dollars. 7 people. I know that's
wow.
I mean, you hang around me long enough, you're going to win some, right? I know 7. I also know 6 people been hit by lightning and 4 people that have been attacked by sharks. So I don't know what any of that means. But anyway, you win the lotto. It's not a guarantee to happiness. Lots of divorces. Your relatives fight with you because they think they deserve something. Your friends are jealous of you. You get the money all of a sudden. Now you can afford drugs. You can afford more of this, more of that. You quit your job. Not necessarily the greatest thing for you. So just because you get good material things from your materialization doesn't mean that's necessarily what you need. So I tell people what you need to be doing is spending time materializing things that make you content, happy, peaceful, right? Loving, appreciative. Materialize the wealth of happiness. And people look at me like, what? Materialize happiness? Yes, materialize happiness. It grows. The seed is always there. You can choose to grow it or you can choose to ignore it. Most people never water the seed of happiness because they're still in this victim mentality that they lack something and everybody's picking on them and the world's done this to them and they deserve better and more. And you got to get out. If you ever go to one of my workshops, I let people talk and people will start to tell me their problems. And I let people only go so far and tell me their problems. I go, when did that happen? Oh, 20 years ago, 10 years ago, 5 years. Focus on the now. Always focus on what is in your control. Yesterday is out of your control. Tomorrow is only partially in your control. In other words, things you do today either can make tomorrow better or worse, right? You don't have 100% control, but you have some influence on it. So that's okay. But it's what you do in the now that can influence the future. It's what you do in the now that will make your life better now. And that's the only thing you're guaranteed is in the now. So I teach people work in the now, meaning don't dwell on things of the past. I had a guy come to me, and I've told this story in the past, and I've had several incidences of this where the guy gets bad news. He finds out he's stage 4 cancer. I mean, he's got a 6-month death sentence waiting for him. And this particular guy, and I choose his story, and I hope he doesn't mind. He's dead now, but I hope he doesn't mind me telling his story. He was not a very nice guy. I'm one of the few people that he could talk to because I didn't judge him. I just saw him as a soul, a spirit, somebody trying to do the best they could, but he was failing. He had several marriages, 3 or 4 marriages, not sure exactly how many. He had several children from each marriage. He hadn't talked to those children in a decade. Had no relationship with his ex-wives. He was a boss at some big company, and when he retired, everybody was happy he left, and nobody talked to him after he left the company. It wasn't like he had friends that played golf with him anymore. They only played golf with him because he was the boss. Once he was the boss, nobody wanted to be around him. So he came to me and he says, Reverend Bill, pray for me. I heard you're a healer. You can do all these things and stuff. And I go, well, let's look what you got. I said, I'm looking at this, the fact that you know you got 6 months to live, as a gift. He goes, what? What do you mean? Tell me that's a gift. I said, it's a gift. Most people don't know where they're going to go. They can have a heart attack tomorrow and drop dead or get run over by a bus or fall, trip, hit their head, they're gone, whatever. But you got an idea that you got a short time left. And now's the time to mend relationships, to look at your spiritual life, to look at your children, to look at your ex-wives, to look at all these things that you've messed up, quote unquote, in your life, and try to fix them. Why you still have an opportunity to do so. Control the now. And I told him, I said, it's not about who loves us in this lifetime. The big question when the time comes is, who did you love? Because that's what you had control over. Who'd you love? What'd you do for him? How'd you serve him? How'd you help him? So he wasn't happy with that answer. Guarantee he wasn't happy with that answer. He was looking for me to do some kind of miracle hands-on and all that kind of stuff. And he left because I'm not going to do anything. It's your destiny. It's your karma. It's what's awaiting for you. And in fact, I said it's nothing unusual because every one of us has got death waiting for us. It's just fact. Nobody's getting out of here alive, except Elvis, of course, and we know that. But everybody else, nobody's getting out of here alive. So I hadn't heard anything in a long, long time. And then I saw him just before he died and said things were going well. I said, oh, that's great. I didn't exactly know what things were going well was about. Finally, his obituary came out. He was dead. I attended services. And there's his ex-wives. They all showed up. I'm going, and all his kids were there. And I started talking to him. They're talking about how he came and he listened to them and he apologized. When they attacked him on the phone or in person or on email and said all bad things about him, he just said, you're right, I'm sorry. And that blew him away because after a while they couldn't fight him anymore. And then he started listening to them and figured out what they needed and help and stuff. And I said, well, I guess you guys were listening to him because he told you he was dying of cancer. And they said, no, we didn't know till he died. And I said, wait a minute, he never told you he was dying of cancer. They said, no. So there he was. He wasn't looking for sympathy. He didn't want him to like him because he was dying, but he found out how to help them and listen to them. And in 6 months, he went from being this arrogant, egotistical, terrible person to a guy that was actually missed. His family, his ex-wives and his children actually were sorry to see him die. 6 months before that, they didn't want to see him come around ever. So when things happen to you, people in the West always have a tendency to judge it. That's good. That's bad. That's evil. That's terrible. You lose a job. You go, oh my God, I lost a job. Well, you don't know what's going down the road. Maybe the next job's maybe not it, but maybe 2 or 3 jobs from now that you get is what you needed, but you would have never looked for that job because you'd still be working for that terrible company you're working for, right? So it's not what happens to us. It's our attitude about what happens. So I tell people, you get a disease, you get fired, you lose a marriage, you get injured. Something's going on in your life and it's out of your control now. You can look at it as you're a victim, you're hurting, complain, suffer, it's painful. Or you can look at it and say, what is the gift? What is this teaching me? What is this supposed to teach me? You had bad parents. They beat you up. They abused you. You were sexually abused. You were emotionally abused. I've met some people been through some, if you listen to their stories, it's terrible. You want to cry for them. But that doesn't help them. Because they've been telling this sad story for 30 years, right? And everybody's listened, everybody's crying. What they have to eventually do is they eventually have to go, all right, I don't have to like that person. I don't have to like anything they did to me. But I need to love and forgive them. You don't have to tell them you forgive them. You don't even have to tell them in person that you love them. It's all done from here. It's all done from within. Because by hating the people that have done things to you, and by hating the events that happened to you, and by focusing on them forever, you're never healing. You're the one being punished. It's like somebody really does something nasty and mean to you, and they say bad things about you, and you leave, and you're angry with them, and you think about it for weeks and weeks and months, and maybe even years. Maybe you never talked to that person for 20 years, a relative. You think that other person ever gives a second thought about what they said to you? Probably not. But you've dwelled on it, and then every time you tell the story to somebody about what happened to you, you've relived that event. It's just like it happened. I was listening to a woman, and she's telling me in great details, tears coming down her eyes, and she's very animated and telling me about this terrible operation she had, and how painful it was, how hard it was to recover. And I'm listening to this, and I'm thinking, I go, oh my God, when did this happen? Last month? Oh, no, that was 27 years ago. And she's still talking about it, right? To her, every time she brings it up, it's real, like it's just happening now. So I tell people, that's not helping you. It's not creating a better future for you. It hasn't created a better now, this moment. So take control of your life. When you allow others to beat you up emotionally, most especially emotionally, and you hold that, whether it's a bad marriage, bad childhood, whatever, if you keep hanging on to that, that person continues to punish you over and over and over again.
Totally.
So
I remember Wayne Dyer once saying, it's like trying to poison someone else, but drinking the poison yourself.
absolutely. It's I remember I had a boss, and she, say hated me would be maybe not an exaggeration, but pretty darn close. She looked for everything she could do to try to get rid of me. And I finally said, oh, I ain't going anywhere here. I'm going to transfer to another department. And it worked out well. But she'd phone every boss I had and tell them all this stuff that she thought I was terrible of. Even if I was out of the office for 2 years, she'd still make a point to talk to him and say, oh, you got him working for you? Don't you find him this and that? And that? I had the big bosses of the corporation come to me, and a big guy, and he goes, district manager, and he goes, Bill, she's doing you wrong. If you file official charge on her, we'll take care of her. I mean, it's this bad, harassment and all this stuff, and I go, no, I don't want anything to happen to her. I've forgiven her. In fact, every time she was mean and nasty to me, I would pray for her. And when I went home at night, I'd visualize her, pray for her. And when I was no longer working for her anymore, for 18 years, and I didn't see her for like 16 of that, I prayed for her. I sent her love. And then 18 years later, I ran into her where I was given there was a new postmaster of an office. And I was asked by that postmaster to do a benediction and an opening prayer for the ceremony where they swear him in to be postmaster. And this old boss was invited. She's sitting in the front row, and she's looking at me with the biggest smile that I'd never seen her smile like that. Her and her husband were just so happy to be there looking at me. And afterwards they came up and hugged me and looked. They had no idea I've been praying for them for 18 years to give them love. And I never told them, haven't told them to this day. But you never give up on somebody. If you have somebody that you've had a run-in with, it's not important. In fact, it's not a good idea to ever tell them, well, I forgive you, because that's like in your face, right? Well, I forgive you, God bless you, but you're really angry at them, and it's just like, I'm higher evolved than you are because I can forgive you. No, don't even tell anybody to forgive them. If somebody comes to you like on a 12-step program, because I have this happen all the time. I have people on a 12-step program, and they'll call me up. Well, I want to ask your forgiveness for something. And I go, I don't even remember that. Oh, yeah, I did this to you. I said, you know what? I forgive you if that's what you want. But I have no memory I don't remember these things that people have done terrible to me. It's like, doop, doop, gone. File, it's flushed, it's finished, I burned it, it's gone. And I said, even if I did remember it, you were forgiven a long time ago, but that you're asking for it formally from me and it helps you on your 12-step program, you have my forgiveness if that's what you need. But there's nothing to forgive because I was never angry. I never let it get to that level.
If forgiveness is such a fundamental part of healing, which I believe it is personally, why do you think people in general struggle with it so much and hold on so dearly?
It's like I work with veterans, okay?
Okay.
PTSD veterans in particular. I don't know if that's a term they use in Australia or not, but the veterans come back from a war and they got, there's some emotional battle damage there. And a lot of them, I could get them to a place where they could function a lot better if they'd let it go. But they've lost their marriage, they've lost their jobs, they got no retirement, they've done drugs, they've done alcohol, they got all these things, and they all been blamed on the war. Vietnam did this to me, or the Gulf War, or whatever, Iraq. The war did this to me. And even if it was just a year there, right? But the war did it to them. And they got an identity. It's like, I'm a PTSD veteran, I got troubles. When you identify as your problem, it's going to be hard for that problem to leave. So one of the things on me giving workshops trying to help PTSD veterans is to give up that ownership and that identity. You're not that anymore. Not if you want. If you don't want to be, you're not that. It's a matter of making up your mind, which is like almost impossible for all of them because they want to hang on to it. We want to hang on to the fact that we were abused as a child and our parents didn't love us and bad things happened to us and we were poor and we didn't get this and we didn't get that. That's our stories. And we hang on to our stories because there's a certain level of comfort in our stories. We know that story. That's who we are and we're comfortable. We learned how to handle that pain. But I'm telling people, forget your stories. You're not your stories. So if you came to me with whatever problems you might have, I would listen to you for an hour and listen to you, tell me what your problems are. And then I'd say, okay, now we've discussed that. We're never going to talk about that again. Now, let's talk about what we can do going forward from now. And a lot of people have trouble with that concept. I have people leave my counseling and they go, no, you don't understand. I said, no, you want to keep telling me the same stories over and over. You want to convince me how bad you are, how big of a victim you are. When people think of themselves as a victim and how things happen to them, they're looking for somebody to rescue them. They're looking for that outside source to come and rescue them. They're looking for that miracle man, the miracle cure, the miracle process, something that's going to come and rescue them. The only way you're ever going to be rescued is when you look in the mirror and realize that's the person that's going to rescue you. It's you. And when you make up your mind that you don't want to be that story anymore, it's gone. And that's so simple for me to say, but in reality, we both know that there's people on there holding on to their stories for their dear life. They're never going to give it up. And the best I can do for them is give them meditation techniques, give them things they can do to control their anger, control their fear, control their outbursts and all these. So I have to handle it both ways. But those people that come to me that are open, if they come to me and they say, I want to be cured of PTSD, we can do it. But they don't. They just want to be treated for PTSD. Mm-hmm. There's a difference, right? So believing is huge. Let's go back. Let's go to PTSD, for example, because you do have some veterans there in Australia, and they're dealing with this as well. And you have survivors there of sexual assaults and abuse and things like that. And they're suffering a form of PTSD. I know that for a fact because I've been counseling people. I realize PTSD, post-traumatic stress syndrome, is not just for military veterans. It's for first responders. It's for people that, especially women that have gone through some terrible abuses, physical, getting beat up and all kinds of things. So it's out there. A lot of people are suffering from it. And I've also found that families where somebody in the family is suffering from that, it's like a cancer. If you have a husband or a wife that's suffering from PTSD, members of your family are also suffering. It's like an alcoholic. There's other people that are going to suffer from it, or drug use. It's communicable mental disease. It will affect everybody. So I look at it, and so when I'm treating veterans, I try to have a workshop where I say, bring your spouses, bring your children. No extra charge. In fact, I don't charge vets. If I'm giving a workshop, veterans aren't charged. I'm there for them, right? So, but without the family understanding what's going on, and just having working on the vet, you're only working on part of the problem, because other people already messed up, and they got anger towards the veteran, for one thing, and they have to see how this thing came about. So, to me, why we're here and our purpose may look different for everybody, but in the end, it's always about love. Love your family, love yourself. But if you don't love yourself, you can't love anything or anybody else. So that's where I try to start. That's why I tell people, the rescuer is in the mirror.
Have you, no, yeah, it's amazing. Have you ever, or let me reframe that. Have you always lived this way yourself, or has there been a tipping point for you?
Wow, it's interesting, because I normally get stuck because I have all these unique experiences, and I got books out there, and I got over 100 videos out there, 100 and some videos where I tell mysterious, supernatural, mystical, cosmic conscious type stories, true experiences from my life. I've had 3 near-death experiences. I've had what you call a rainbow body experience. That was like supernova of out-of-body experiences. It was just unbelievable. We can come back on sometime and we could talk about the supernatural on another show. I've had so many things that people look at and say, oh, there's the event that changed his life. I said, no, I got 2,000 of these things. And they go, what? I go, I was born at 2 or 3 years old. I was already meditating. Didn't know what I was doing, but I was making it up, and it was working. I was getting visits by entities, interdimensional or whatever. Someplace I was being given information. I had a near-death experience and saw the next 50 years of my life in advance. That happened when I was 8 years old in the hospital. But I knew almost all the highlights of my life coming up, including my experiences in Vietnam and everything else. And I had 2 more near-death experiences after that, two in India. No, one in India and then one in California, but it's an odd story because I ended up back in another body in India. Weird story. Anyway, so you ask yourself, what changed me? I would say for me, I am who I am when I came in. The only thing that's changed in me is now I am more focused on getting my message out. When I was younger, you're still trying to find your way. You're getting married, you got kids, you got a job. And I was trying to do things my own way, but I didn't have the time to help people like I am now. To me, my purpose of life is being served the last 20 years. The rest of my life before that was my spiritual education. It was, 4 trips to India, it was, going to South America, Machu Picchu, was doing all these interesting, neat things. And in Vietnam itself, when you're in Vietnam and you see people die around you, and I knew who was going to get killed. I knew who was going to get shot. I knew which helicopters were going to crash. I made the mistake of telling the military. And of course, then they did a big investigation on me, which is interesting because I was investigated by the CIA. And then that was in 1967. And then in late 2010s, someplace, I got a call and I looked at my phone and it said, Langley, Virginia. Well, if you watch enough movies and stuff, if you watch all those spy movies, Langley, Virginia is the headquarters of the CIA, right? And it's the guy, he says, I got a $68 million contract or whatever number it was, big number. And he says, I'm looking at your files. I said, what files? He says, well, I can't tell you. It's secret. I says, the file's on me? And he says, yeah. Well, can you tell me what it says? I can't tell you. I said, you got a file on me, but you can't tell me what it says. He says, that's right. I said, send me a copy. He says, it's all going to be redacted except your name. I said, well, what's the subject matter? And he said, well, I can't tell you, but basically I'm looking at your time in Vietnam when you were investigated and you predicted all these different things and bullets, shot, it didn't kill you and bullets went around you and all these crazy things. And we want to know how to do that electronically. We want to engineer that. Can you help us? I'm going, what? So there's this guy from the CIA, some contractor, and he figures he can engineer all this stuff that I was able to do in Vietnam. Predict this, do this, dodge bullets, all this. And I tried to tell the guy, I said, well, you know what? I've been meditating, doing Kriya Yoga, which is a Kundalini, raising energy, a meditation. I'm doing all these things. I said, for 60 plus years at that time. I said, it would take me 100 years to tell you how to do what I'm doing. I go, they were upset. They didn't want to talk to me anymore. But I thought it was odd that the government had a file on me. And I kept talking to the guy, because he had loose lips. And I started talking to him and he says, well, you're not the only file we got. I said, oh, really? Who else? Oh, we can't talk about it. We got some guys here who are at Stanford University in a program. He's got some other guys. And apparently he was telling me off the cuff that the U.S. Army in particular was finding people with unusual talents and powers and abilities. And they were keeping a file on them and been watching some of them. And part of that offshoot was later on, Stanford Institute had a program of remote viewers. I don't know if you know anything, anybody's talked about that on the show before, but remote viewing, and they had military people, and the CIA was running it. And some of the names that I know in it, because I know people that were in it, which is interesting. So, and he said, well, yeah, I got the gist from my friend that was a remote viewer, because this guy, CIA guy, wasn't telling me, but I was asking him. He says, yeah, they put together a top secret group. He says, he tells me, he says, I have no clue what it's called. He says, but those of us that kind of know about its existence, we call it the Jedis, the Jedis, like from Star Wars. So they got this Jedi army they're putting together, small groups like special forces of guys that can read minds and, teleportate, and do different things to see the future. So that's the kind of crazy stuff. You ask me what's changed my life. Just getting up and breathing. But I'm not the same person that I was yesterday.
Yeah.
Not the same person I was 2 hours before we started this interview. I'm one of these guys that I take a look at it, and every time I look at myself, what I did yesterday, 2 days ago, 10 years ago, 5 years ago, I say, well, that wasn't too wise. I know something better now. I got a better answer for that. So I'm always revising what I thought I knew. And now I'm at a point where I think, as long as you're thinking with the mind, you're never really going to fully get the grasp of the real ultimate truths. The only way you're really going to know what's the truth is by going out of your mind. No thoughts, right? You can't solve all these world questions and the universal questions that everybody asks with the mind.
For sure. I got one question for you before we change gears, because I ask people certain questions on the show every week. But what occurred to me then when you shared all that with you was, you talk about these thousands of incredible spiritual experiences, what most people don't even comprehend, let alone experience. Did they come from because it was the way you were being? So you were being a certain way, and then they were coming from that, as opposed to seeking, and then it's a dangling carrot. Like to me, the whole spirituality movement, and as I explore it more, we can get as hung up in wanting that as wanting a car or wanting a house, and then we miss the whole point of it all, of what's happening now in the moment.
You stole my thunder, because you've gone exactly where I tried to take people. In fact, just before we had this broadcast, a guy wrote me, says, I watched your videos, and I could do this and that, but I want to be able to teleport. I want to be able to move objects. I want to do all these things like you do. Show me how. And I wrote the guy, said, seek God first. Seek the kingdom of God. Everything else will be given to you. If you're seeking these things out, you're not seeking wisdom. These are all talents, gifts, but they don't necessarily equate to spiritual wisdom or spirituality. You can have somebody, and I've been with people that are very powerful. When I was a young man, 18, in Hawaii, I was taken in by this kahuna, the religion of kahunaism. This guy was like the ultimate kahuna. He was like the top kahuna in the whole all of Hawaiian Islands. And he wanted to make me his apprentice and everything. But I seen what he did. He practiced black magic, all kinds of magic. He could heal somebody, but he could also chant them to death. So not a good thing. So having powers and the ability to do things and control things and to know the future and do all these things, that's not what we're here for. And as you intelligently and wisely point out, that's a great distraction, because we're really here on the journey to find God. And we find God through meditation. We don't meditate so we can levitate. We don't meditate so we can, astro travel, walk through walls, read minds. If somebody's doing that, they're missing the boat. You meditate for only one reason: to spend time in lovingness with the divine creator. It's when you're in love with somebody, you just want to spend time with them. And that's all you're doing. You're not meditating to see, am I more wise? Am I more at peace? I mean, even those things are off track, right? If you're meditating just to find peace and harmony, well, that's nice. That's a side thing. But that's not why you should be doing it. You should be going in your meditation to find time with God, to love God. Not even to be loved by God, just to love God. I tell people that, and I lose people. I don't have a huge million people following because everybody wants me to teach them how to get these cities, these powers, to channel all this stuff and do all these things. And I'm going, no. And then when you teach them meditation, and then when they're with the teacher, they're with the master, they're with the guru, what do they want? They want to ask the master 1,000 questions about the technique and not about loving God. Mm-hmm. Just be quiet around the master. Be quiet around the teacher. You'll learn more in that silence than you will by asking questions. But go ahead. Your people got questions out there. As a segue.
You just sparked one more question for me. And how would you define God? Because I only ask because it conjures up so many different things for so many people, including myself, because I never had a religious background at all. I haven't even read the Bible, but here I am on this journey.
We're all on a journey. Number one, first off, no one alive that has a body is going to be able to answer that question sufficiently. They can intellectualize an answer. They can surmise it from all the reading they've done, all the lectures they watched, all the YouTube videos, and they'll come up with all this, that, the God, the creator, and all. And I'm telling you, again, the mind is not going to be able to know what is God? Who is God? What is God? Is there a God? Does God have a God? When was God's first day? Why did he create us? I mean, you go crazy, right? So I make it a lot easier for me. I literally believe that we were all, not just we human beings, but that everything is made of God. Therefore, everything's in God's image. Just like it says in Genesis, everything's made in God's image. I believe that's true. Because at the molecular level, everything's atoms. And you go down, there's more, it's all stuff and empty space. But in these atoms, you got electrons, protons moving around, doing all these crazy things. That energy, that's God's love. And that energy going around creates a humming sound in the universe, because I've heard it. And that sound is a sound that Christians and Buddhists and everybody tries to make the same sound. Om, Amen. All those kind of sounds. That Om sound maybe different slightly in each culture, but you can wonder why they all got that, right? That's the sound of the universe. That's the atoms, movement, the cosmos. That's God. So if you see God in absolutely everything, then everything is God, is of God. And people that go, I got to go to church and pray. Why? Isn't God in your house? Isn't God in your car? Isn't God wherever you're at? Isn't God out in the forest, on the beach, nature? That's like that old Indian story from India where this judge and all these people, they come to the guru and they say, we want to learn your higher technique. We want to learn this Kriya Yoga, this Kundalini energy thing you got. And the guru says, I will only take the most worthy. I'll give you a test. I give you this banana. Go take the banana anywhere this week. You take that banana and you eat that banana without anybody watching you. Those that have accomplished that come back and tell me, and I will teach you. And they all leave, right? And they all come back. And I went into a closet and I ate that. Another guy was in a cave. Another guy was in a tunnel, right? One guy come back, and he was a poor guy, and he wasn't too educated. And all these other guys were all college educated. And he come back, and he still had his banana. And he laid it at the teacher's feet, and he says, I failed. I can go nowhere where I'm not watched. And the guru says, explain. He says, God's watching me wherever I'm at. How can I go anywhere where God is not? That's who he made a student. And then the rest all got the drift, and then he took them anyway. But anyway, so God is everywhere. So when you see somebody practicing a religion, which is a social practice, it's your origins. Generally, you take a look at somebody's religions, take a look at their parents. They were Catholics. They were Jewish. They were Muslim. They were Hindu. They were Jehovah's Witness. They were whatever they are. The family indoctrinates you, literally indoctrinates you into whatever they are, and that's what you're going to become, right? They get very unhappy if you switch religions, right? Very few parents out there allow their children to explore, have free thought. What do they think? What do they feel? Let them look at it. But all religions have really, it's a pathway of dogma. It's a pathway of religious ceremonies and initiations and set structures socially and organizations versus the individual. Say you just said you had no religion, but you're spiritual. You're a seeker. You're looking, you're asking questions. God knows when the day you stop asking questions, you're dead. Asking questions is the good part. Finding answers is the hard part, because a lot of times you find an answer, it satisfies you for a while. That's why people, they start off their one religion. And then when they get to be in their 20s, they might switch religions, and then they change religions again when they're 80. I mean, they can flip-flop around. They're growing and they change, and now they've got a different group. But a lot of people stay locked into a religious group because their social life, their family, everybody's that they know is part of that group. You leave the group, you're ostracized, right? So nobody leaves. What's that got to do with finding God? If you want to do catechism and you want to do the rosary and burn candles and incense, great, that works. Somebody else wants to do worship a rock, a shivling. They see God in that. Okay, great. Somebody else wants to bow to the east. It doesn't matter. God has no religion. Jesus was not a Christian. What? Jesus not a Christian? He didn't form a church. He didn't become, I'm a Christian, follow me. He didn't have that. Buddha wasn't a Buddhist. You know what I mean? So it's like, what? God has no religious litmus test. In other words, you go to heaven, quote unquote heaven. You go to the other side, a lot of people believe in heaven, hell. But in those beliefs, they think God's got a guy checking your passport up there. Oh, you're a Catholic. No, you stand over there. You got to go to purgatory for a while. You're a Mormon. Yeah, okay, you can go over here. I mean, You don't have to be any religion. You don't have to be Christian. You don't have to be anything. This is about spirituality, because when you die, you're no longer that religious sect. You're spiritual. You're purely spiritual at that time. Now, I happen to believe in reincarnation, so there's another whole discussion there about learning, coming back, evolving. But having a religion is basically dependent on where you're born and born to. Does it help society to have religion? There's some people out there who believe that almost 90% of our wars are caused by religion. So has it been a good thing? One side, the priest is telling you, go kill this person. The other side, the guy's telling you, go kill this guy for God. And, God's not taking any sides in any of these wars. It's about your behavior in those wars that's being looked at. Okay. Yeah. Anyway, so I'm not much a religious person. I get along much greater with people that are non-religious and they want to believe in something. They're looking for something. And I tell people, look in the mirror. The teacher, the guru is in you. It's the same one in all of us. So you got to be able to look at that. You got to pass those purity tests, what I call the purity tests. Are you compassionate? Are you loving? Are you appreciative? Are you generous? Are you helpful? Are you serving? I mean, are you living the life of a spiritual being? Or are you just practicing a religious belief?
Yeah, plenty of ponder on there.
Yeah.
Absolutely. No, beautiful. Thank you for answering that. It's just something that I wanted to clarify. I'm aware of the time, so I'm going to ask you a few questions I ask everyone on the show, just to get you know a bit more. And one is, what does your morning routine look like?
Okay. Generally, I get up, I wake up about 3 something. I found that the hours of about 3:30, 3:40, a little bit before 4 in the morning till after 4 are the golden hours for prayer, for meditation, contemplation. If you're a meditator, that's the time you want to get up. The world is pretty quiet that hour. Vibrations, the energy is subdued. And it's easier to get in touch with those elements. So meditate. If I throw a number out, people go, oh, they'll measure it. I do more than that. I do less than that. I need to do as much as he does. Just say, I meditate a given time. Sometimes it could be 2 hours, 3 hours. Sometimes it could be 40 minutes. I mean, it depends, right? So when I finish the meditation, I sit in great silence. I find that the meditation itself, whether you're doing a mantra, you're visualizing going up and down your spine, the light, the sound, coolness, heat, whatever technique you're using, whatever it is, you're focusing on that to get your mind clear. Most people finish the meditation technique and then they get up. No, that's it. I did a meditation. No. The real impact of what you just did comes afterwards. Just spent all this time doing this technique. Now sit quietly in the silence as long as you can. Just let it fold in there. Just feel the love of God. Give God your love. And then when you've done enough of that beautiful stuff, end on a prayer. Now, my prayers can take over an hour sometimes because I meet somebody, I know when they need the prayer. Some people, I don't even remember their name, but I remember their face. But I know if I say a prayer to God, that hitchhiker I picked up in 2000 or 1990, whatever it was, right? Bless him, right? I feel he needs it. God knows who it is. I don't tell God. God knows. He's back in my mind. He's pulling it out. He knows who I met. And I did. I met a hitchhiker in 1990 that I've been praying for. And that's 30 years?
Wow.
30 years. So I don't pray for things for people. I pray for people to have wisdom, courage to face what they got to go through. I pray for them to have understanding. That's the kind of things I pray for. So people say, oh, please pray for my aunt. She's 97 years old. She's dying. Can you pray for her? We don't want to lose her. I'm going, no. But they don't want to hear me say no. I said, okay, I'll pray. But I'm not praying for her to be miraculously healed at 97 when her time is expiring. It's her time to go. I'm praying to God that she has a smooth, loving, comfortable transition into the other world. And I want somebody to be there to help her. I want her to feel good about letting go and releasing. So, but to tell somebody that's trying to save somebody's life, they don't want to hear that. You know, it's like, hey, look, it's your time to go. You know, as I said earlier, it's when it's your time to go, it doesn't matter. You're not going to stop it. Not even I. It's your time to go. It's your time to go. Even though I've had 3 near-death experiences and I've been blown up, shot up, been in 8 helicopter crashes. I've had motorcycle crashes, car crashes. I mean, you name it. I've had everything happen to me could possibly happen. Wasn't my time. God threw me back. I don't know if it's reward or punishment.
I'm sure time will tell. If you could have dinner with anyone from anywhere in the world or any time frame, a couple of people, if you could sit down and have a conversation and dinner with them, who do you think it would be?
You know, there's a lot of famous people out there that I'd like to say that. And I've actually sat down and I've had lunch with President Jimmy Carter and his wife, you know.
Wow.
I've met all kinds of other neat people. But this is going to sound wild and crazy. I enjoy having a meal with my wife. We've been married over 50 some years. We met when we were 14 years old, and now we're both in our mid 70s. And I still enjoy every moment with her. She is still my girlfriend. I never expected to have a 74-year-old girlfriend, but anyway, so be it. She's still my girlfriend. We're still in love. And I find that she has great wisdom. And of all the people that know me, she knows me the best. And she doesn't flatter me. She doesn't build up my ego. And she's willing to say, you know, you shouldn't have said that. And, you know, you don't know it all. And, you know, I've washed your underwear. I know what life is really like for you. So don't, you know, she keeps me humble. And that's a blessing. Totally. And I am blessed to have her in my life. So that probably doesn't answer your question, but that's the most truthful response I give. I mean, I could go through history, and it's
a beautiful answer.
I mean, I like to St. Ignatius Loyola. I'd like to have met St. Francis of Assisi. I mean, those are interesting people, but I don't have to go back in time.
Totally.
I had breakfast this morning with my wife, and it was delightful. And I look forward to as many as those I can have, because we're both in our 70s. So I don't know how many of those I got. So everyone I look forward to, and I enjoy it. And I never know if that's my last. And if it is, I'm going to know that last meal I had with her was divine grace. It was a gift. Anyway, so.
Yeah, no, great. And just last thing, with everything we've covered today, what would you like a few words to leave our listeners to ponder on?
With what's happening in the world now, it's so easy to get down. We got crazy leaders worldwide. I'm sorry, America's probably got the craziest, but you know, we got crazy leaders all over the place. I mean, I can't think of anybody that has leadership out there that's spiritually in tune to what's happening right now. So if you're sitting there and you wake up in the morning, you're watching cable news and you watch all the stuff that's going on in the world, it's going to be a real downer. I tell people, take a fast from the news. Step back. Forgive your politicians. They're doing what they think is best. They don't know any better. They're not evil. I mean, they're not evil. They may be misinformed, or maybe later they change it. But you know, nobody's really that, well, not, there's some people out there in some worlds probably that's evil. But you could lose a lot of sleep, and you could get frustrated and get anxiety ridden by worrying about all this stuff in the world you have absolutely no control over. You got no control over this virus. You got no control over all these world wars that are going. I mean, there's wars everywhere right now in Africa. There's uprising in the middle. There's always a war going on someplace. There's hatred. There's all that stuff. And I'm saying, don't focus on any of that. And don't focus on any group to hate. try to blame somebody for it. So focus on loving those people around you. And that's more important than looking for people to love you. Because having people love you is influenced by if you can help them, if you give money, gifts. I mean, think about people that we love. Oh, this celebrity, you want to be hanging around him. You love this guy until he's been no longer celebrities in jail. You don't want to hang around with them anymore. But so we're always looking to have people love us. Wrong. Our job in life is to love others. Whether they love us back or not, they may hate us, but love them anyway. Because at the end, I've said it before and I'll reiterate it. In the end, it matters who you loved. That defines who you are.
Beautiful. It was a great place to end this amazing podcast today, Bill. Where can we send everyone if they want to find out more about your work?
Well, I actually have a website. This can be really hard. www. But Rev, like in Rev Bill, Rev, no dot, RevBillMcDonald.com. RevBillMcDonald.com. That'll get you the website. If they want to look on my YouTube video, I have a YouTube video out there, Bill McDonald, I think it is, or Rev Bill McDonald. But you'll find it. It's got my shiny little face on there. And I got 100 and some videos where I actually talk about some of these supernatural experiences, and I share a lot more depth. I like to do like what we did today, guy, because I tell stories. That's great. I inspire somebody. They're happy for a while. The next day, they're still them. But if I could tell directional things, like I'm trying to give a GPS to people. I'm trying to say, look, meditation, contemplation, silence, helping, serving, loving, these will bring you joy. These will bring you peace. And ultimately, no matter how much money you have, whether you're Bill Gates or anyone else, in the end, money is not going to buy you happiness. Happiness is a self-purchased item, and it comes from being at peace with the world and first being at peace with yourself. So love and serve.
Thank you so much for coming on the show today. I appreciate everything you do, and I really felt we captured the essence of a great conversation today. So I just want to thank you, and I have no doubt everyone listening today will be inspired from it. Thank you, Bill.
God bless, and thank you.